Let's talk about a huge shift that's happening in India's space program. For decades, it's been all about the government. But now, a whole new race is on, and this time, it's private companies taking the lead to build the nation's next generation of eyes in the sky. And, well, the whole thing starts with a price tag that is, honestly, almost impossible to believe.
Right, you're seeing that correctly. Zero. We have to start right here because it's the most astounding fact about this entire project. The price. This groundbreaking national satellite constellation was awarded through what's called a zero bid. And that means, literally, the Indian government is not paying a single rupee for the satellites themselves.
So you're probably asking the same thing I was. How on earth can a country get a state-of-the-art satellite system for free? I mean, what's the model here? What's the catch? And what does this pretty radical new approach really mean for India's ambitions in space? That's exactly what we're going to unpack.
To really get what a big leap this is, we first have to rewind a bit and look at the foundation it's all built on. For more than half a century, one organization has been the absolute backbone of India's space program, the Indian Space Research Organization, or as we all know it, ISRO.
ISRO's work in watching the Earth from above goes way, way back. It all started with some early demonstration satellites like Bhaskara-1 back in '79. But the real game changer? That came in 1988 with the launch of a fully homegrown remote sensing satellite program. From that point on, India was seriously on the map, and today ISRO operates one of the most sophisticated government-run fleets anywhere in the world.
To put it simply, ISRO built the workhorses. Their satellites, from the IRS and Cartosat series, have delivered decades of absolutely critical data. We're talking about information that's helped manage India's agriculture, respond to natural disasters, and plan out national development. These things are proven, they're reliable, and they are powerful.
But that established government-led way of doing things, it's now making way for something completely new. India is kicking off a massive change, creating its very first national satellite constellation through a public-private partnership, a PPP model, which is designed to ramp up its capabilities at, well, an unprecedented speed.
So who are these new challengers? Well, meet the Allied Orbits Consortium. It's a team of 4 private Indian space tech companies. You've got Pixel, building these cutting-edge hyperspectral and high-res optical satellites. Then there's PeerSight, developing synthetic aperture radar. That's the tech that can see through clouds and even at night. Satcher brings multispectral imaging, and Dhruva Space is handling all the crucial ground stations and infrastructure. See? Each one brings a unique piece to the puzzle.
And this whole new approach is just perfectly captured in this quote from Pixel's founder, Awais Ahmed. He says, "This is what the new space economy looks like. Private sector speed and innovation deployed at national scale. The whole goal is to fuse the speed and fresh ideas of the private sector with the big picture strategic needs of the nation."
So how does a project like this even get off the ground? I mean, it's a super complex process, but here's a simplified look. First, you have to define your area of interest. For this project, that's India. Then you design the absolute best orbit for your satellites. From there, you figure out the coverage, you define what success looks like, like how often you can revisit an area, and finally, you lock in the hard performance goals for the whole system.
Okay, so we know who's building it, and we have a basic idea of the process. But what is this new constellation actually for? What's it going to do, and why is it so vital for India?
At its very core, the mission is to give India its own, sovereign, all-seeing eye in the sky. The orbits are specifically designed for persistent, comprehensive coverage over the Indian subcontinent and its strategic areas of interest. It's all about one thing: self-reliance.
And we're not just talking about one kind of vision here. This is a true multi-tool for observation. You've got hyperspectral sensors that can see things invisible to the naked eye, analyzing the actual chemical makeup of stuff on the ground. You have SAR, which can peer right through clouds in total darkness. And then you have multispectral and panchromatic sensors to give you those super high-res, detailed images you need for mapping. It's a complete toolkit.
And with a toolkit like that, the applications are just immense. I mean, we are talking about a massive leap forward in the ability to monitor the health of crops, manage precious natural resources like water, plan out our cities, and respond to natural disasters with almost real-time information. It's a huge deal.
But listen, it's not just about civilian and economic uses. Beyond all that, this constellation has a critical national security function. It's going to provide a powerful, independent way to conduct border surveillance, monitor maritime activity, and gather key strategic intelligence.
All of this ladders up to one crucial strategic goal: data sovereignty. Now, that's just the principle that a nation has the right to control the data that's generated about its own territory. So by designing, building, launching, and controlling this entire system from Indian soil, the project aims to drastically cut down the need to rely on foreign data sources.
But, as you can imagine, such a bold and unconventional approach, it's not without some debate. This zero-rupee model has kicked up a whole constellation of questions about what this really means for India's space program in the long run.
And the first big question that critics are asking is this: is this project actually building something brand new, or is it just kind of repackaging satellites that were already in the works? So here are the two sides of that argument. On one hand, critics are saying this project basically just pulls together satellites these companies were already planning to build anyway, and in return gives them a stamp of national approval and a guaranteed market. But on the other hand, InSpace, that's the government agency overseeing the deal, they state really clearly that no, the consortium is required to build a completely new set of satellites that have to meet very specific, very demanding technical specs laid down by the government.
Okay, this brings us to what is maybe the most sensitive issue of all: the data itself. When you have a private group of companies owning and operating satellites that are gathering this level of information, who really controls what happens to that data? Well, here's the official safeguard, explained by InSpace's director. So while the consortium owns the satellites, and yeah, they can sell data commercially, they are required to keep a detailed log of every single party they sell high-resolution data to. And they have to share that log with the government agency periodically. It's a system that's designed purely for oversight.
So, what's the crucial point here? It really all comes down to a very careful balancing act for India's future in space. How do you encourage this exciting new wave of private innovation while, at the same time, protecting the nation's strategic interests and autonomy?
And India isn't alone in facing this. Countries like the US and in the European Union, they also heavily encourage private space companies. But, and this is a big but, they operate within really well-defined legal and security frameworks that make sure national security is never, ever compromised. India is now charting its own course on this global trend.
And that leaves us with this final, really provocative thought to chew on. By putting private enterprise right at the heart of its national space capability, is India pioneering a brand new model for global leadership in this century? Or is it taking a calculated risk with the control of its most strategic assets? The answer to that question will probably shape the next great space race.